Okay, all right, we're here. I think we have the streaming issues figured out for LinkedIn. So I believe we are streaming on LinkedIn. I'm just going to check one more time and make sure that is the case. But we are on YouTube and we are on X and we're on LinkedIn. Look at that. Wow. Okay. All right. Pretty exciting. That we finally got this figured out. Okay, so today what I wanted to talk about was this new thing that we just launched as part of our integrated logging support that does a little bit of enhanced logging for you and gives you this very cool invocations view in your dashboard. So an invocation view is sort of a standard practice that most observability tools give you. But if you go into CloudWatch behind the scenes, it is very different. It's just just the logs themselves. Obviously, when you're in there, I shouldn't say obviously, maybe you don't know this. There's different log streams, so those log streams are all disparate, and you have to go and look at different log streams, or you have to update it so that they're all sending to the same log stream. So it's a little bit of a pain. So what we tried to do is we wanted to give our users observability out of the box the best that we could. There's a whole bunch to observability that we're not going to get into. We are not an observability tool. We don't want to be an observability tool, but we do want to give you the tools that you need to debug your workloads that are running on AWS. So hopefully, if you are out there and you've got questions and you want to comment, please do. Would love to hear more from you and what you want to see, where we can take this, and sort of what we've done with it. So anyways, let's start here. Let's quickly talk about, maybe frame this a little bit. So we launched this blog post the other day, introducing enhanced logging and new invocation views. Let me log in or zoom into this here so we can read it. Okay, so basically Ampt's enhanced logging now enables this new invocations view that lets developers get better insights into their AWS workload. So just to quickly go through this, the idea is that again, Ampt takes a very AWS native first approach. So we want to deploy everything to AWS native services directly. We are not a PaaS. We don't want to be that layer in between. We want to just take your application code, figure out the exact patterns that we need, what we call productized patterns, and figure out how to get those directly into AWS. And then not only just deploy them to AWS with these patterns, but actually manage those patterns for you, which is pretty cool because then if anything goes wrong with a particular pattern or a particular workload for one customer or one user, we can fix that there and it gets fixed for everybody. And it just takes away a lot of those headaches of you having to manage it yourselves. So just quickly, we'll jump into the actual view so we can see it. But let's talk about sort of the observability challenges on AWS to start with. So if you're familiar with CloudWatch, and maybe I can do this, I'll open up CloudWatch in a new tab here. Oh, I probably already did, but I'm not zoomed out. Hold on a second. All right. Well, I opened it multiple times. That's why. Okay. So if you're not familiar with CloudWatch, CloudWatch is sort of the built-in tool that AWS has that basically collects everything. So I think it started primarily as just a logging tool, and then it added metrics and then other types of capabilities that let you do some pretty interesting things. There's CloudWatch Insights and all these other things that you can use to aggregate the data. So you have a lot of power with CloudWatch. But in order to use CloudWatch and to do metrics and to do the right levels of logging and all this kind of stuff, there's quite a bit of things that you have to add into the system. So and you have to configure your code and instrument your code to do these things. So it is a bit of a pain to do some of that. So what we want to do is we want to give you CloudWatch out of the box because, again, we're native first, right? So we don't want to be shipping logs to some third-party provider or storing them in an Elasticsearch cluster somewhere. There are times that you want to do that. We don't want to do that automatically. We just want to give you as much capability as we can directly out of the box, just using those AWS native services. If you want to ship your logs to Datadog or something like that, perfectly fine to do as well. But the goal here is to try to make it as sort of hands-off for you as a developer, that you can just write your application code and we'll give you those insights as best that we can into it. So as we mentioned here, there are a couple of other observability tools. I mean, there's a lot of observability tools on the market. So Baseline is very cool, Amigo, Datadog, Honeycomb. And we support different levels of integration. If you want to ship your logs to Datadog or to Honeycomb or some of these other ones, just contact us, let us know. We're trying to build better tools to make that super easy for you to set up for yourself. But we do have the capabilities to do that. Some APMs like Sentry are very easy to integrate with Ampt if you want to use those as well. So let's just quickly talk about Invocations now. So the organization by Invocations has, again, sort of become the standard, right? So you've got this this raw logs approach where the idea is just, log, 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 and maybe you decorate it with some information. So obviously you might have a log level there. Maybe you have that request ID or some sort of trace ID that you can use to correlate the logs across different, correlate the different logs to the same request and so forth. The problem is that the way that CloudWatch has worked in the past, or how it does work, is that it just does that sort of raw log approach. So it just logs out every record. And again, it has the request ID in these, and there's information that you can use to correlate those, but you have to do that sort of manually outside of it. The other problem with CloudWatch is the interface for CloudWatch is typically the console for AWS, which it continues to get better. And again, it's a very, very complex system. There's hundreds and hundreds of services that has to support. So obviously it is very complex, and it's hard to sort of target it or I guess customize it for single or for a particular type of user. So again, that's one way you can do it. There's a couple of other tools that you can use to access those logs directly, and you can do some things with them. There's all kinds of things you can do, but for us, the problem with that raw logs approach was just that it wasn't giving enough insight, especially if you had a lot of invocations, and it wasn't capturing enough data for us. So this is why we added some additional log enrichment. And basically the way that the log enrichment worked is, in the past, we were capturing bits of information. So we would capture, obviously, the duration of it, and we capture some other information about what type of invocation it was. Was it an HTTP request? Was it a data change request? Was it a task that was running? So there's a bunch of things like that we were already capturing. But even at that level, we were trying to write that to every log. Writing that to every log gets a little bit overwhelming, because then if you have a lot of logs, then you've got some noise, you've got noisy logs, and you're duplicating the same information, which you really don't need at the log level. You need that at the invocation level. So there's a couple different things that we did. So we took things like the request path, method, and response status here that we were going to that we automatically capture from, whether it's Hono or Express or any of these frameworks that have some sort of HTTP request. We automatically capture that there. The data change events, so not only just the event itself, or that it was a data change, but we say whether it was created or updated or deleted, and give you that key there. We do the scheduled task name now. If it's a static asset request, which works really well for the purpose of debugging a development environment, it will show you that it tried to load the static asset. We don't log that in the application for production or for stages, because again, that would just be super noisy. There's other ways to get those logs. The event name comes through. We do storage listeners and what type of listener it was, as well as the file name that was accessed, the task name when you're running task. And then this is cool, and we'll show you this. We use the log level counts to actually escalate or bubble up whether or not there was a warning or an error in your or a log that generated one of those. So that's kind of cool there as well. And then the other thing that we did was, as I said, the interfaces into CloudWatch are typically using the console directly, which means, again, you have to have permissions to get in there and set up all that for the users, or you use another third-party tool that can access those APIs directly and log you in and do that stuff. So what we did, and this was just absolutely brilliant by Russ Schick, who is our lead developer, and just, again, I call him a wizard because it is amazing. What he did did, but essentially we created a way for you to just get a temporary token, short-lived token, tightly scoped, right down to just the ability to access that one particular log group. And then we forward those requests directly to the CloudWatch API that then loads those into the dashboard. So it gives you this really, really fast experience, or at least as fast as CloudWatch can be, which is much better than sort of proxying those requests and then waiting for them to download onto our system and then delivering via an API and so forth. So it's much faster. It's a lot more dynamic, and you can do a lot of additional cool things with it as well, including some search stuff, which even I haven't played around with all the capabilities of that yet, but there's some pretty cool things that you can do. So yeah. So anyway, so let's get into this a little bit more. Again, we always love feedback, so please feel free to send us some feedback about what you like about this, what you don't like about this, what you would like to see. Again, we try not to be overly opinionated with some of these things. We want to give you more control so that you can do more interesting things. And be able to do that yourself. But at the same time, we want to give you a base level of sort of functionality out of the box so that you can go ahead and build really, really quickly, and you don't have to think about these things. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to go over to a project that I have, and if anybody, again, like I said, if you have any questions about this or feedback, ideas, thoughts, would love to hear it. Please drop it in the chat in one of these, or yeah, I guess the comments in one of these, and we should be able to have them pop up. I think that is working. So, okay, so I have I'm just in VS Code here. I've created a very simple Ampt project. Where basically this was just using the Express JavaScript template, I believe, is what I used. So this brings in a couple of things. It brings in the Ampt SDK, and we'll go through why. I'm just using these to demonstrate some of the different events that it can generate. We bring in the data module, and then we're importing Express. I'm creating a Express app and adding the URL encoded middleware so that we can pull stuff from the body, and then creating the router, and then just mounting that to /API. So any APIs that we create off, or any routes we create off of API, will be at /API/ whatever the path is. Okay, so I've got a bunch of stuff commented out here. I just put it in there so that it'd be easier and I don't have to type it all from memory. But let's start with the absolute basics here. So I'm just going to start this up. I'm going to run Ampt in my console. In my terminal here. Let's see here. Let's should check for updates. Oh, look at this. So actually, one of the cool things that we do with Ampt is we do check any Ampt packages as well as the CLI. We do check those to see if there's a more up-to-date version of that. Again, these would not be for breaking changes. I mean, breaking changes would show up as well, but you'd be warned about that. But this is just nice. That way you always stay up to date. So when you're working in a project, you know that you always have the most recent version of the SDK and any of the modules like data and AI and an API and things like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this and update that. So that'll update Ampt data for me. So this is syncing, and this should give me a URL in just a moment. All right. Sorry, I'm looking over at something over here. Okay. All right. So this gave me a URL. This is my personal sandbox. So I'm going to go ahead and open this URL over here. So this is just loading that static file. Again, the way Ampt works is anything you put in this static directory here, this will just load it from the CDN. When it loads things from the CDN in production, it loads them, it maps them directly to the storage S3 bucket behind the scenes using a manifest file, and it's super fast and crazy. When we do it in your developer sandboxes, we actually load it through the Lambda function so that it is always fresh. So we don't have any sort of we don't have any caching. So that way, as you're iterating and as you're playing around with things, we want to make sure that you can see the changes to those files as soon as possible. Okay, so that's why we're getting this index file here. Like we said, if we want to access this hello route, which just says hello from the public API, I put a little math.random at the end just so that we can see that it changes. So we want to access this at /API/hello, and then we'll go ahead and run that, and just say hello from the public API with our little with our random number here, and if I refresh it, we'll see that this changes as well. Okay, so great, we got an API up and running, all fine and good. We're here because we want to see the invocation stuff, right? So if I go into the invocations, or if I go into my dashboard here, in a couple different ways you can do this. You can go to the dashboard, ampt.dev, and then find your app that way. Pretty simple to do that. Or you can just type in open here, and that'll open you directly into the app. So this is my personal sandbox right here. I'll click into my personal sandbox, and then we'll see that I have 2 invocations, and the average duration is this. And now I can go and click on this logs tab. So this is where we are basically have enhanced this with this new view. So a couple of things that you see here. So first of all, you see that there has been a static request. I think if I zoom in a little bit to this. So you see that we've got our static request here, and when we open this up, we get an invocations detail panel, which let me zoom out a little bit. So this gives us the time that the invocation happened, how long the invocation was, what type it was. Again, static is more of something that you'll only see when you're in your dev mode, when you're in a developer sandbox. If there is a fall through, sometimes when we're updating manifests and populating things around the world, there might be a few static assets that will fall through in a production or a staging environment. You get an invocation ID, which is the request ID, the method, the path, and the status of that. Now, there's no logs that are showing here because, again, this is just a static asset, so that's a top level request there. Okay, so then we have a fave icon, which got a 404. We don't have a fave icon. It's just the browser request. And then we have this API hello. So if I click on this, we'll see the same idea that we actually requested API hello. We've got our invocation ID. We've got our method. We've got our status. Again, no logs. But we do have a type HTTP. So that is telling us that it was an HTTP request. I have another request here as well. Don't know why I have 2 requests, but I must have requested it twice. So anyways, I have those 2 requests. And that's, I know why, because the static asset probably didn't load or didn't count as a request. But anyways, so I have, so that's pretty simple. I've got that there. Now let's say that I actually want to add an additional bit of logging to this. So in my hello route here, I can just use the built-in logger that comes with Node, or basically with Node. So I'm just going to say hello route, and I'll just do that. I'll save this. Again, instantaneously synced, right? So this is immediately available for us to just refresh, and that's been updated there. And now if we refresh this, now this is CloudWatch, so it's going to take sometimes, a second or 2 before it actually writes the file. You do have something to show you, that you do have this real-time logging here. So whenever you do something that you have a log, it will show right here in your console. So it's super easy to sort of watch what's going on there. But if you have a lot of logs and you're connecting a bunch of different things, it's not always easy to sort of figure out, or to use that as a way to organize them and understand everything that happens. And again, it just gives you the message there. So it's just sort of a top-level thing. Just to give you some insights into what's actually happening. Okay, but if we go here, we actually have this hello request again, and we see that we have a log that says message hello like this. So we automatically add, with the logger, we add a logging level. We give you the type. We give you the request ID, we give you the message, and then we give you the time in milliseconds to let you know when that particular request happens. So again, this is pretty standard stuff. You're probably not overly impressed by this yet, because again, this is just standard stuff that you need out of the box, but you want to be able to have this. Now again, the cool thing is that this is happening through CloudWatch, which is a little bit of a different interface into it. So hopefully it just makes it easier for you to be able to sort of correlate and figure out how some of this stuff works. So okay, so let's go back to the app here. So we did a hello route like that, and that's perfectly fine. We can also use any of these other levels that we want. So we could do info, which is technically the same as log. I believe it's a 40 or something like that, or 50, whatever it is. No, 30, I guess. And then, so I'm just going to put info here, and then we can do console. Let's see, console.debug like this. So we can use any of those sort of standard, those standard logging functions or methods in order to do that. And then when we request this here, we'll see that we get those different things logged out. Nothing super exciting about this other than the levels can be different, and we'll talk about how we can use those levels in a bit. So we should have now hello, info, and debug. And so see, info is 30, debug is a 20, and yeah, and just a regular log is a 30 as well. Okay. So let's do something a little bit more exciting, because this is where we can do some really interesting things. So before we get into logging the different things that we're actually the different types of events, I want to show you this. So if we do console.warn, oops, I meant to say .warn, like this. Let's say there's something that happens, maybe it tries to make a request, but you want it to be resilient, so you just want to go ahead and issue a warning and say, okay, if this doesn't go through, it's okay, but I do want to I do want to record the fact that something happened. So what's nice about the way that this works, and I'm just going to remove these because we don't need those. What's nice about this is anytime you do a console.warn, this will go ahead and again just write a standard log to the system for you. But when I refresh this here and actually run it, a couple things. We'll see that we get a little bit of a different color here to let us know that it's a warning. We tried yellow, it didn't look great, so we're doing sort of a darker gray. But what is really cool is when we go into the dashboard now and we look at this request, we get this little warning symbol here. So this lets us know that there was a warning within this particular invocation. So if I go into this route here, I'll see that there is a warning here. This will be identified as a warning. So this is just a nice way for you to flag events or flag logs, but this will bubble up, right? So you can have obviously multiple logs within this request, but then maybe you have one or two warnings. That'll go ahead and bubble up and give you that information there. So so actually I should probably just do this. Then I'll just log out log test log like this. Okay, so that works with warning. If you have an error, so if this is, try that again. If you have an error and say this is an error like that, then when this particular route runs, now again, this is logging the error, so it's not actually throwing an error, but so this has logged the error behind the scenes for us. We now get this red, this is an error, and if we go back over to our invocations view, we'll see that we now have this invocation identified as an error. So we can go in and we can say, oh, okay, so this is the error here. And again, you can dump more information into the messages. Okay, so I want to show a couple of other types of logs that we will see, or the different types of invocation types that we get, because again, we do have tasks and data and events and things like that. So let's do this. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to get rid of these logs. And I am going to, let's start with just a simple event here. Okay, so I'll explain what I'm doing here. So I'm doing an events.publish to a sample-event, or publishing event called sample-event, and then I'm just sending in some data that says the source of this was API hello route, like that. Okay, and then I have a listener that I've defined down here. Oops. I have a listener that I've defined down here that is saying, that is listening for sample-event, and then when that event comes in, it's going to log, okay, I received this event, and then it's actually going to log out the information about the event itself. Okay, so I'll save this, and we'll go back over, and I'm going to bring this into a smaller window so it's faster to trigger. And I will just refresh this. So now we have that is run, and then we will see these logs. This was the previous one. I will see this log, so we received the sample event, and then here's the output of that over there. Now when we view that here, we'll actually see that this is registering as an event, and it's saying that it's a sample event. If I click into the sample event, I'll see some more information about it, including, again, the request ID, how long it took to run it, which is pretty fast, and then I'll see that log line as well as this here. And so one of the things that we actually see here is that the message is a JSON object like this, but it it's formatted as a string, and so that's fine. Like that'll work for us in some cases. We're actually adding some more capabilities to just sort of automatically process these. Process the JSON objects or a JavaScript object and just turn it into JSON for you. But you can actually do that yourself if you wanted to. So what we do is you just do JSON.stringify like this, and then we are going to have the event. Now, what we need to do is we do need to add a level to this right now. So if we said this was level 30, that's just a simple thing like that. So we can say this is level 30. Why am I getting, oh, because I'm missing a thing there. So if we wanted to do this, we could, and then this will essentially take that event and it will log that as a JSON object. So if we come over here and we'll refresh this, this is log that now. So we get this information, we get the real-time logs that we'll just log it out, and you'll see that we have event there like that. And then if we go back to our logs and we refresh this, we'll have another sample event. We click on this, and then we can open this up, and then we have this detailed information like this. So we kind of wanted it to be string on purpose. We trying not to be overly opinionated, but I am really curious to hear what your thoughts are. Is this something that we should just automatically merge when you put a JavaScript object in there, or do you want to be more intentional about it? These are kind of the things that we're trying to make sure we are not too opinionated, but we do want to make it relatively simple for you to do some of these things. We are going to take out the need to put the log, the level in there, that you don't have to record that yourself, but it's just the way the upper level merging stuff works right now. But anyway, so this is nice because now you have this very detailed JSON log that you can look at, and you can see all this information. Okay, so that's just an event. That's the event mechanism or the event logging, which is I think pretty straightforward. Okay, so then the other one that we can do here is I'm gonna just comment this out, and let's do a data. So this is just data.set, setting users foobar or foo@bar.com and saying name.foobar. And so this will actually just run a data request. And then what we need to do is we want to listen for whenever that changes. So I just have a data .on that's listening for everything. This could just be created like this, and then I could just be listening for created events if we want to do something like that. So I don't know, yeah, there's nothing in the database yet, so that would work, but let me do star just so that it records everything. And then this is going to go ahead and do record event.name, event.item, value.name. And then here I'm dumping the event, and this is, again, one of the things where if you dump this event, like this is going to merge back, if you didn't have it separated into an event, this will merge all of that data from the JSON object that gets spit back. That would merge it all into a log record for you, which it may be exactly what you want. I'm not going to do that here. I'm just going to go ahead and do the record. So I'll clear this, come over here and refresh that. Oh, I really hate that behind me like that. It looks terrible. Refresh that, and then we will get that a record has been created for foobar, and then we get this event, this data change event that is created, and the information about it. Previous is undefined because there's no information that object didn't exist. And then if we come over here and refresh it, now we get a data change event or an invocation here. You'll notice that we have that it was a created event, that the item was created, and then we see the key of the item. So this is standard information, so we can pull that back. And again, same thing here. We get the record, and we get the information here, and then we dump that into the just dump that text into the message field. If you want to merge that data, you can do that. Just add the log level and do the event merge like we did on the other one. Okay, and then actually what is cool is, again, that showed that that was a request for, or that was a created event. If we were to run this again over here, refresh this again, so this is going to run, and this is going to be an updated event, and you'll notice that we have some previous information there as well. So if we come back over and load this, then we get a data updated event, and it tells us the key that was updated, and again had the same information. So this is nice because, you know, again, the other thing I didn't quite mention here, but I hope is pretty standard, is that we can just filter on just those types of events. So if I just want to see my data events, I can do that. If I just want to see my HTTP events, I can do that. Okay, so that's data. So just a little bit more information about that. And then another one that we can do here is comment this out. We can do, let's do the bucket one here. So so this is going to just write something to, so we created a bucket up here, by the way. Again, you don't need to name it bucket. You can name it whatever you want, just a reference to it. And you actually don't even need to do this. You can just run it directly off of the storage method here. But we defined a bucket, sample storage, and then we said we want to write a file called hello text to this, and in that file we're going to put hello world. Now you can have uploaded files, you can do all that kind of stuff with the bucket, but we're just going to keep it simple for the purpose of the logging stuff. Okay, so then if we go down to, let's see, we have a bucket.on, which is a storage.on event. So this is going to say every time something is written, we want to go ahead and write that information to, or we want to log this out, and we'll log out that log line as well. So I'll save that. I'm just going to clear this out, and then we will go ahead and rerun this. And oops, there we go. So we now see that there's a storage change event and new file written to storage, and then we get that it was a write, and we have the path as hello there. So now if I come over and I refresh this, now we have a storage write event, and we get the hello.txt, which is the name of the file. And again, same thing here. If we wanted to merge that, we could do that as well. So that's a nice, handy way to do it. And again, we can filter on it. Just want to see the storage events. Okay, one more, and then I will move on to something hopefully a little bit more interesting. I find this to be super interesting because it does add a lot of capabilities. But let's go to the task side of things. So I'm going to, let's see, comment that out, and then I'm going to enable this task. So tasks are interesting. Tasks are they're similar to events in that they're detached and that they run. They can run asynchronously. That's sort of the idea behind it, where you initiate these tasks. Now, again, there's a bunch of different ways you can use tasks. So you can schedule tasks. So you can say run every 5 minutes, or you can say run every midnight, or every Tuesday at midnight, or whatever it is that you needed to do. So there's a lot of capabilities you have with tasks. But tasks are really designed to be sort of longer running events, right? So you've got something that you've got defined that you want to run for an extended period of time. Tasks are a great way to do it. Of course, you can run short execution tasks as well if you want to, but this is just a great way to run really long systems, or really long requests or jobs that you'd like to write. And it's great for things like orchestration as well. And so tasks also can be scheduled for the future. Similar to events, you can delay an event. You can also schedule a task into the future, or you can just run it immediately. Anyway, so we are going to await, so sample task.run. We haven't defined sample task yet, so I'll show you where we did that in a second. But essentially, we're just going to say when this API call hits, let's go ahead and kick off. Let's run this event and run the sample task, and we'll pass in source as API hello/route. That can be whatever you want, whatever information you want there. So if we go down here, we can look at where we define the task, which is here. So we just use the task from the I think I'm thinking the SDK. We import tasks from the SDK, and then we can define a task like this. So whatever the input is for the task, that just gets passed in. So we have log running sample task. We will log the information about what is happening, what the event was that triggered the task, and then we're going to return from this a message. You don't have to return anything from a task, but this is just a way that you can send a message back to the system, and this gets recorded in the task logging, which is the two things they're not separate, but it gives you, the tasks are recorded separately, but the logs will show up here as well. So within this task that's running, we should see these particular logs that get spit out. So we should be all set there. We're saved. We're going to go ahead and refresh this here. This gives us a new request, and then we should see these logs running. So we get the get a task saying it's running the task. We get this task here with the information about the task itself. And then if we come over to our invocations view, we'll see that this sample task was run, and we get, again, the logs that are within it. Now, what we also get with the task is if we go over to this tasks menu itself, we will see the task that the task itself was run. You can see when they're scheduled, when they're completed, if they failed. So this is just a way to keep track for things like orchestration. And if we open this up, we see information about it, when it was created, when it was scheduled, when it was submitted, when it started, when it completed, information about the life cycle of it as well here. And then we see that input and we see that result as well. So these two systems can work really, really well together in that this isn't going to give you the detailed logs of this particular request, but it's going to give you, that it started and that it ended and so forth. So you obviously don't see any of the logs here for this task. But what we should do, actually, I didn't even think of this, we should actually link this back to your invocation view so that you can actually bring up the logs for this as well, because now they're all organized here and you can see the logs that are associated with this particular execution. So that is something we will add. Okay, so that's tasks, and I think that sort of covers a few of the main things that we need to do. So we did data.on, we did the buckets, we did storage, we did events, and we did tasks. Okay, so those are helpful. Again, a little bit opinionated in terms of how we do the logging, in that we do structure them with with the different log levels. If you want to merge the information in, you do have to create, you have to stringify it and so forth. We can make this better, but again, we want to be careful about how much we do that that takes away from some control that you might have. So a couple of things. We do let you use whatever logging. Again, we're just recording logs, so you can actually use any logger you want. So one of the loggers that I really like is Pinot here. Get Pinot.com. There we go. All right, so Pinot is pretty simple, and again, probably a lot of people use it. All you got to do is install it and then essentially require it. And again, we're ESM, so we need to import. But let's go ahead and use Pinot for a second, because I do want to show you just a couple of things that you would need to do in order to get this working. It's not overly complex, but it is something that you need to do if you want to include them in the invocations. And we want to actually try to figure out a way to make this a little bit better. But anyways, let's do this. So let's install Pinot here. And again, you can do this right through the interactive terminal, or you can open another terminal window and do it that way. So we've installed Pinot. So up here, we want to import Pinot from Pinot like that. And then we want to create a new logger. So we'll do const logger Pinot. And I'm not going to put a level in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a logger called Pinot. All right, so we've got our logger. We should be all set. So let's go into our hello route here, and I'm just going to do a logger dot info, and I'll say this is a Pinot log like this. All right, save that. Come over here, refresh, go back to my logs, look at the last 5 minutes here, and refresh. And we have our log here. Oh, that's not the one. Where is it? Did it work? This is a Pinot log. Okay, yeah. Here. Okay, yes. Oh, actually, no. This is exactly what should be happening. So we have this request that got picked up. This was the request that we made to the /API hello endpoint. And notice that this again captures the data that it's supposed to capture, but it's not capturing any of the, or it's not capturing the log within that. And there's a reason for that. So the Pinot log, it just shows up here. And by the way, one of the things we try to do is a fallback. So if a log shows up and it doesn't have context, but it's a log and we want to see that log, then we want to make sure that you see that log as well. So we just sort of default this back to say we're going to just display the raw log for you. So that's why you're seeing this is a Pinot log here. Now, if you click into this, this is giving you the detail of that particular log. It's got a level, great. It's got a time, it's got a PID, a host name. These are things that are added by default, by the way, to Pinot. And then it's got a message as, this is a Pinot log, but it doesn't have the request ID. And that's the way we correlate these things. So we have to do that. So a couple of things that I like to do here is we don't really need the PID and the other information there that we get, the host name. So we can just configure this to say base, and we can just do it like that. Doesn't like that. Oops. Should be right. Base. Oh, too many dots there. Okay, there we go. All right. So we just set the base to empty like that, and then by the way, this is something that is helpful. So notice there's this system error that showed up. So I made a syntax error. And when I make syntax errors, I get these messages. We try to surface these errors as best we can and categorize them. And then those system errors will show up here as well. So you can go in and see, here's my stack trace. All right, here's the issue. It's saying, an unexpected token and the line that it's at and so forth. So hopefully this debugging information is there for you. So even when you're in this, even when you're in your development environment like this, you're seeing those detailed logs in addition to the ones that are showing up here. Okay, so let me clear that out. Let me refresh this here, and then this should give us a log that just says this is a Pinot log. Notice we don't have that extra stuff that's showing up there now. If I refresh this, we'll see this is a Pinot log. So now we don't have that extra stuff there that we probably don't want. You can leave it if you want to. It's just logging extra information. Just costs more money to log it in CloudWatch when there's probably no reason to have that information because it's not useful. Okay, but now we need that request ID. So how do we get that request ID? All right, so one of the things that we have in the SDK is we export something called core. And what core is just some core information about the SDK so that you can, again, tap into a lower level of the SDK if you need that capability. So in our request right here, I'm going to go ahead and log another record, and I'm going to just going to say core.request ID. All right, so this request ID now, if I go and load this over here, this is going to come over and show me, oh, actually I can see it here. So this is the request ID that's being made. So if I come to here and I refresh, I see that it's logging out this request ID B76 and that this actual request here is also B76. So I need to get this data merged into the proper place. So one thing that I can do is in every request that I make, if I want to, I can just include the rec ID like this, and then do the core rec ID like that, and then I can call this message, and this should work. So this is I'm going to say this is a new Pinot log. So I'm going to get rid of this there, close that, come over here, request. So this is going to give me that message of new Pinot log. And then when I refresh this, now I get hello. And now I see that this new Pinot log is now correctly correlated to this particular request, like that. So that's one way that you can do it. Another way that you can do it a little bit more, this is probably the easier way. If you wanted to build something, maybe write your own little logger that could do this, that would be helpful. One of the things that I was hoping that you could do is you could maybe do something like this, where you could add the rec ID up here and then do the core there. The problem is that when you initialize this, you're outside of a handler, and the handler is what captures the ID, the request ID. So this won't work. That core.request ID will be blank because this is at initialization. So that won't help us there. But that is something that we've been thinking about. If you use something like Pinot, can we just inject that request ID automatically for you? That is something that we probably will add. So you can do it this way. That is one way that you can do it. Another way that you can do this is you can create a child logger. So I think you do, oops, let's see if it figures out. Child logger. I guess you have to define a child logger, right? Well, let's look at the docs right here. Child equals child logger.child with a property. Okay, so this is what we want. So we're going to grab this code, because why write it ourselves if somebody already wrote it? Okay, so here we want to say child. Probably not the best way to say it. I don't know, child logger. We call it something different. But here we want to include that request and this ID here, like this. Like that, and then we would say hello. I'm going to say hello from child. Okay, so now what we've done here is we are basically just creating a child logger that is putting everything there. So now you can have a whole bunch of logs from from this here, and you wouldn't have to worry about adding it to every single log line. Again, you have to do this within the handler, so this would be something where maybe it would be easier to just write something, write a small function, and then pass in that core information so that it could get the request ID when it was actually logged. And again, we're trying to figure out some other ways to make that easier for you without being too opinionated. That's one of the things we want to make sure we don't do. But anyway, so now that this is set up here, if I refresh this, this will go ahead and it should give me the same logging capabilities. Oops, get over here and refresh. And that's the same one. Refresh. There's our new one here. And then hello from child. So that logs it there. One of the things that is very cool about Pinot, by the way, if you are using it, by default, it will just go ahead and log a string to the messages field or the message field, which is great. But if you did want to actually pass in something more complex, it will do that merging for you automatically. So if you had, we can say this is a test Pinot log like this. And then you could say, I don't know, some var, and then let's do the classic foo bar. I don't know why we always fall back on that, but so do something like this. Then when we ran this again, we should get a merged structure right here. So now in this request, we get foo and bar as a merged structure. So it gives you a little more capabilities over the logs themselves. Okay, we're almost out of time. So I just want to show you one more thing, and then I'll let you go. And hopefully you learned a little bit about it and sort of how you can do some debugging with the new Invocations view. So one of the things we haven't talked about yet was search. So search is pretty cool. So I can, also I don't think we really talked about this either. We can filter on different log levels. So when there are warnings, when there are errors, let's go back a little bit because we don't have any warnings in here. So let's go back. We'll do warnings. There's our warnings. That's nice. You can do trace. We didn't do trace as one of the options that we had, or error. And actually, maybe just before I mention search, the other thing is that by default, we log everything. So whether it's a trace or a debug or info or just a straight log, all of that's going to get logged. We don't not log because of a particular log level. That is something we are going to change so that you can actually control the log level when you actually when you're actually logging stuff. Using a framework like Pinot, this is one of the things where you can change this and say, set your level and do it that way. And then what you can also do with something like this is you can pull down from the parameters. Let's do this quickly. Params. So from your params, and I'll show how this works so we can see it. Let's do within this route here. Oops. Within this route, I'm just going to get rid of this for a second. We will just do a straight log, and we will log out params.list like this. Save that, and then I'll go ahead and refresh this. And then what we get from that parameters is we get a bunch of information. One of the things that is helpful is environment type or env type. So we can actually load this here just by doing this. Get rid of the list like that. Save that, clear this, run that again. And then we'll see that we get this personal here. So what we can do is we could say something like, we can say level, and then say, we would do params, env type, does not equal personal. Then we do info, or I guess we could do, if it doesn't equal, yes, we want info only. Otherwise, we want it at the debug level like this. So what's nice about this is that now you can basically say when we're in a particular environment type, we want it to, we only want it to do different levels. So I'm not going to show you that just because we're running out of time and I just want to show you some search things. But basically what this would do is it would set the log level based off of the environment that you're in. So if you were to go ahead and deploy this to production, for example, or another permanent stage, then this is going to be a stage type as opposed to a personal type. So it would switch it over to say, okay, well, I'm only going to log info and below, or info and above, and then for everything else, I won't log that. So just a way to control how noisy your logs are that way, and that's something we are looking at doing as well for the built-in logs, just to control that also. Okay, so the last thing again I want to show you is the search stuff. So let's go over to search here. All right, so search is, we give you out of the box a straight search just for text. So if I search for Pinot, for example, here, this will bring back anything that says Pinot, and then this is probably a bad example because what I probably want to do is say something like hello. So this brings back all of the requests with hello, hello from child. What's cool is that if it brings back an individual log, then when you click on it, it will go ahead and show you the invocation for that log. If it brings back something that matches the something that matches an invocation, then it will bring back the invocation here. And then you can combine this, so you can say, like, I only want to find HTTP, HTTP requests that contain, obviously this is going to bring back a lot more. This won't, actually, no, sorry, this will filter on HTTP requests, so this won't bring back any logs unless it actually matches at that level. So one of the things you could do here, for example, is, let's say we wanted to look at data requests, and we'll go back an hour so we can see all the ones that we generated. So, oops, I got a search on that's searching for nothing. So here we have our data event there. So if we wanted to bring back and say, oh, we want to find, let's see if this works, updated events. Yeah, so I want to find an updated event, or you could do data : updated should work as well. like that. So you could filter and say, I only want to see these particular types of events. And then if you did have a bunch of information in here, again, like users and foobar or whatever you've got in there, you can search specifically for that. So you can say foo at bar.com, and this should bring back any records that match that there. If you took this data request off, then you'll actually get the underlying records or the underlying log lines that have that information in it, but then when you click on it, it will bring up the full context of the invocation. So hopefully that's a little bit helpful. Oh, and I didn't even show you this, but you can also kind of thumb through these as well. So you can go through those different, whatever is loaded on the screen here, you can go ahead and just page through those just quickly to kind of go through the different logs. So hopefully that's helpful. All right, the other thing that we did is if you go to, let's see, I'm going to search for CloudWatch JSON log search. Filter pattern for metrics, subscription filters, regex syntax. This is probably not right. There is a way, and I haven't played around with this yet. There's so many things that you can do. No, that's not it. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see, JSON, CloudWatch logs. Let's try this. CloudWatch logs filter search. JSON. I don't know, how about that? Filter pattern. How can I filter by JSON property in CloudWatch? All right, here's some of the posts here. So here's the request ID. I don't know if this, excuse me, if this works exactly like this, but let's try it. Because it is searchable here. So if we were to do this, that obviously won't bring anything back because that's not one of the requests. Hold on, let me just do this. Okay, so let's do the last 15 minutes. All right, so this request is this. So I'm going to copy this and paste that over there, and then I'm going to come over here and copy this again like this and go back over here, and I'm going to hope that this works. So we'll do that. I don't think this is the right syntax for it. Yeah, I don't think you need that. I think we just, oh, and it's rec ID, so that probably would help. Try that. That didn't work. How about this? Try this one more time. I don't think that's right. I should have looked this up before. Let me see. Oh, somebody commented here. Maybe they gave us the answer. That request looks like a valid JSON for formatted logs. Filter request ID. That's not right. So I know you can search on these. And unfortunately, apparently, I don't know how to do it. But it is possible to search on these somehow, some way, invalid character and term. Okay, so anyways, if you know how to search JSON logs with CloudWatch, you can go ahead and do that, and it works. It does work. So again, this is just passing that information directly into it. So that's what I'm going to do when I get off this live stream, is figure out how to actually make that work. I guess we could try one more time, but I know there's a cloud. I want you all to see this. CloudWatch logs search JSON filter pattern, insight logs with JSON fields, filter pattern for metrics. Let's see who we're losing here. Okay, so support alphanumeric characters. Just give me an example. That's all I want to see. Terms using regex, property selector, equality, and string. Okay, well, I think that's what it was. This is what we had tried, right? And let's see, we want to see if we just did type, because we're searching on that, and we want to do type HTTP. See if this works. Okay, well, Oh, I got an extra character in there. Ah, it worked. Okay. All right. So you can do it. All right. We figured it out. So what you should be able to do here is then search for types. I don't know why this is only bringing back a few. Maybe if we did 30 minutes, it is possible to bring some things back. And this is actually searching the raw. Yeah, see, so this is searching the raw logs. Anyways, there's a lot of things you can do here. We tried to make this super easy by just giving you a straight text search, but if you do want to dive down into the logs, and you should be able to then use those logs to search some of those deeper logs. So like, for example, when we did some of those Pinio merging things here, like, I don't remember which one it was, but one of these, yeah, like here we had the message. So if you wanted, well, that's not a good example, I guess. But where we were merging the data deep, doing a deep data merge there, that is something, not that one, not that one. Nope, I guess I can't find it. Anyways, the ability to then sort of search and say, like, I'm looking for it, with foo bar and that kind of stuff. Anyways, all right, we are out of time. I hope everybody found this useful. We did have one comment here from Tyson. Thank you, Tyson, about the new logs view is amazing. I hope you are enjoying it. I build a lot of things with Ampt, so we've got some internal things that we built with Ampt. The website's built with Ampt. The Ampt getampt.com. The dashboard is built with Ampt. So we are dog fooding everything. We've got a couple of little side projects. I just rebuilt JeremyDaly.com with Ampt, and we're doing some other things as well. So I have found these to be very, very helpful and very useful looking at it this new way. So I'm going to have to put up some docs on exactly how to search with deeper patterns than just the raw text search, but it does work and it works really well. And again, you have these filters up here for different time frames. Obviously, you load a week worth of data. You're looking through a lot of logs. This just loaded quickly because. Oh, and by the way, as you scroll, it automatically loads new ones for you. So hopefully, it's super helpful and you get a lot of great use out of it and. You enjoy it as much as I'm enjoying it. And again, let us know what else we can do to make it better. So anyways, that's it for today. We are going to do these every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So 8 a.m. Pacific, and I think it's 5 p.m. Central European time. So we hope to see you. And if you have ideas for what you want us to talk about, let me know. Go to our Twitter. Our X at AmpDev. Check us out on LinkedIn, YouTube. Just let us know, and we would be happy to share more information with you. All right, we'll see you next time.